Okay, so because I think it's really important that we're saving up to GitHub, saving in our repo, and committing a lot, that's why I wanted to cover that at the beginning of this video. I really should have done it at the end of the last one. Again, it's just a really good habit to get into. Okay, so what we saw in that last video was like the basics of the UIStackView. The nice thing is there's not too much more that we have to worry about. It's a really good tool to have. Like, it's perfectly fine doing it using just normal constraints, but if you find yourself needing to arrange buttons or whatever in some kind of a linear fashion, and you have, 2, 3, maybe even up to 10, again, depending on what you're doing, it's a good tool to have. Reach for that UIStackView. As we start getting more, maybe 10 is even stretching it. If we start getting more items, though, we're going to learn about other tools, because there's things that make it much, much easier, and they're kind of more memory efficient. We're going to learn about those a little bit later. For now, we want to learn about another feature that we might need to do with the UIStackView, which is adding views at runtime. So what we did before was we just added them in the storyboard, kind of like manually. We know there's 3 or we know there's 4, so we just add them. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we do actually need to add something at runtime. Maybe like we have an app that has slightly different behavior for like normal users versus admin users, something like that. So we might be adding a couple of buttons. Like we'll have some, like initially 3 buttons, and we'll have 2 or 3 more that we want to add. Again, depending on which user is actually logged in. There's also a couple of different ways to do that, but we're going to learn how to do that with that StackView. Okay, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of room here. Open up another window to look at. And the thing I want to actually be looking at is that UI view controller. So I'm going to add a StackView here. Last time we already had a couple of buttons on screen that we wanted to embed into a StackView. This time we don't, so we're going to be adding it just as an object. So I'm going to search for horizontal StackView. Okay, it doesn't really matter where we put it. Give it some constraints. Just constrain it to the top and horizontal edges, and then we're going to do something a little bit more interesting eventually, but for now, just give it a height constraint of 300. Okay, so now I want to be able to access that StackView in code, so I'm going to control click on that StackView and then drag it to somewhere outside of a function in my class. So StackView, give myself a little bit of space there. So now we have a variable that is connected. We can kind of tell it's connected right here, and it's getting highlighted. I'm going to do the same thing with the button, with the add button, but instead of creating an outlet, I want to create an action. So same thing, I'm going to control click, put it somewhere outside of a function. Again, make sure that it says action and not outlet. So I'm going to say on add clicked, and then you don't have to set the type if you really don't care. We're actually going to use it in this. So I'm going to set that to have that type, the type of this function parameter be a UI button. Okay, so now I have that function. The thing that we're going to be adding at runtime here is going to be buttons. So let button equal UI button. And just because we need to construct it, and I'm just using the constructor that has a frame, or the initializer that takes a frame, I'm just going to use that sender.frame. It almost doesn't matter because the UIStackView is going to control a whole bunch of this. Okay, so I'm going to change my background color. Now let's just make it, what do we got here? We got a purple button. I'm going to set that title. And we'll do a little bit, we'll do a couple of more interesting things here, but for now we'll just do text for state normal. And then the trick is going to be when we add that StackView, we want to add an arranged subview. Okay, so not just adding a subview, we want to add an arranged subview. So add that button. Okay, So now we can run that and see what that looks like. So now when I click add, you'll see it's actually filling up the entire space. But as I add more buttons, it is adding more, but our properties just aren't set 100% correct. I mean, I guess it depends on what we want for correct, but this isn't what I want. This could be what you want, and that's perfectly fine. But you can see that we can add these buttons, or yeah, technically they're buttons. Remove an orientation doesn't actually do anything right now. So let's stop that. And let's actually set some different properties on that StackView. So I'm going to open up my inspector again. And for the alignment, I just want these, again, you could keep it as filled. I'm just going to align them to the center. The distribution, I'll say fill equally. And then let's give it a little bit of spacing. So let's give it like 8 spacing. Okay, so let's run that again. Now when we add these, yeah, so we are actually adding buttons. We got that spacing. It's a little bit boring right now, so let's see if we can make that interesting. But before we do that, like I said, I like to commit often. So I'm going to go back to my command line, get status, right? We played with the storyboard and the view controller. This time, both of these files are related. So I'll just add both of these. You can, if you do the get dot, can be a little dangerous, but it's going to add everything in this folder that might need to be added. So you could do it one at a time if you wanted to, or I'm just going to add both. And I'll say to okay. So now that's saved. We have it committed. It's fine right now. We can always go back. Again, we can look through it, do a git log, and we can see the different commits that we've had. But we can also see from here, my local branch is ahead of my origin up on GitHub. So if you want to, you can also do a push. Let me just clear that. But yeah, that push was successful. Okay, let's make this a little bit more interesting. Just because right now all the buttons are purple and all of the titles say text. So I'm going to create a static variable or a class level variable. We don't necessarily need to do this, but if you have multiple controllers, basically if you have classes that need to share some data, like it only needs to exist one time, that's kind of shared, you can do it this way. So I'm just going to say colors. And if you don't understand static, we're going to cover that. It's if you're still not sure, we're definitely going to talk about it more. For right now, you don't have to worry about it as much. So let's add some colors. So what else do I have? I probably got a green, I guess. Color dot. I'm trying to pick lighter colors or darker colors because I know the text is white. I probably got like a gray in there, yeah, some dark gray or something like that. Okay, that's pretty good. So the cool thing about this is now that we have this array of colors, when we set that background color, we can actually just get a random element from that array of colors. Because it's a static variable, viewController dot colors. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Random element, there we go. And we don't have a whole lot of room here, so we just want to be able to see that. So now, let's just run that again and see what that did. So you see, we're picking randomly. I got 3 reds, whatever. Maybe that was just bad luck. But you'll see that uh, these colors are actually being picked at random, right? We can do that exact same thing with the text. So okay, and then we'll just do that exact same thing here. Get a random element there. So let's run that again. Okay, we can't add too many. Obviously, like it kind of goes off screen, but we have some randoms going on there. Okay. What we'd like to do is be able to actually remove elements now. So that's what we're going to do in the next video. Actually, before we end that video, let's commit one more time. Let's look at our status. I think all we did was just add random colors and text, so we'll say that. Git add. Okay, and then I'm going to push. Okay, so like I said, in the next video, we're going to learn how to remove and even change orientation of this stack view. See you in that next video.